Alex Smith was 23 years old when he was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. Because of this, he needed the life-saving drug insulin in order to manage his condition. When Alec turned 26, he could no longer stay on his mother's health insurance plan as per insurance policy, leading him to have to get his own.
Next.
However, one of the only insurance plans that were available to Alec had a $7,600 deductible and a $440 month premium. And because money was relatively tight for Alec, he could not afford this. Without insurance covering for his medication, Alec decided to temporarily pay for his medication with cash, at rates which were nearly impossible to sustain with his current salary as restaurant manager in Minnesota. In the following weeks, Alec tried his best to save as much money as he could for insurance, saving every dollar possible. Feeling desperate about his financial situation, Alec resorted to rationing his doses of insulin. That night, Alec suffered diabetic ketoacidosis. Unfortunately, he did not survive. Alec's tragic story isn't an isolated incident. Millions of Americans struggle with high pharmaceutical drug prices, oftentimes having to choose between financial hardships or risking severe health consequences. This is especially difficult for people who have chronic health conditions such as diabetes or organ transplant recipients who rely on life-saving medication and drugs to survive. Prolonged dependence on medication can put intense financial strain on patients, and without good insurance, can lead them to have to pay a lot of money out of pocket, as we saw with Alec. Now, you may be wondering, why are medications and pharmaceutical drug prices so high? Surely they must cost lots of money to produce and manufacture on the corporate side, right? Well, not exactly. Insulin is actually quite cheap to produce, at an estimated cost of $2 to $3 per 1,000 unit vial. Insulin's priciness is in part linked to something called patents. I don't know what a patent is. A patent is basically a government license that allows an innovator to be the sole manufacturer of an innovation, such as medication, that prevents generic companies from selling the same innovation for a set period of time, usually 20 years. Now, combined with the fact that companies in the United States are given full power to regulate their own prices as they see fit, is incredibly harmful in the context of the healthcare industry. As stated by oncologist Dr. Vincent Rajkumar, for many new drugs, there are no alternatives. Ironically, the inventor of insulin, Frederick Banting, and co-workers Charles Best and James Collip sold the patent of insulin for $1 in 1923, which would be approximately $19 today according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. With Banting famously stating, "Insulin does not belong to me, it belongs to the world." Another shady practice that some pharmaceutical companies use is called evergreening. Evergreening is a practice by which companies, in an attempt to extend the life of their patents to delay the entrance of generic companies into the market, make small changes in the formula of their medication and patent it as a new innovation, which oftentimes makes minimal effect on patient health. Now, one thing I would like to clarify is that patents and monopolies are only part of the story. The high cost of pharmaceutical drugs is also made up of several other factors, like inflation and the economy. Another major factor is that the US government, unlike in other countries such as Canada and the UK, does not regulate drug prices, which can also lead to prices going out of hand. Now, with all this talk on the causes of high prices, you may be wondering, just how much does insulin cost? According to the Healthcare Cost Institute, the average 30 days insulin supply cost around $271 in 2012, to which it rose to $527 in 2017, the year Alec died. It then reached its peak in 2019 and then began to fall slightly. Now, to calculate yearly spending in 2017, we will first divide 365 days in a year with 30 days, giving us approximately 11.5 insulin refills in a year. When we multiply that with $527 per 30-day supply, we get about $6,092 of yearly insulin spending. $6,092 yearly spending on just medication, and that is without accounting for other expenses, like groceries, rent, and taxes. While the situation for insulin was way worse before, it has improved very slightly, thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022, which put a $35 price cap on insulin for those eligible for Medicare, which was especially helpful for non-insured patients. However, even this is limited, as the vast majority of Americans still do not qualify for Medicare.
Okay, you're not eligible, buddy.
The act also did not apply to other essential medications, like EpiPens, which, according to GoodRx, can cost up to $600 plus without insurance, proving that the issue is still severe. Unfortunately, as consumers, there is not much we can do to lower the cost of medication. That lies in the hands of the government, to whom I propose a few policies. First of all, I propose a greater federal regulation on pharmaceutical drug prices through price caps, regulations, and negotiations. This would allow pharmaceutical companies to retain some control over prices for medications, but also to the extent that they would not be allowed to charge consumers with exorbitant amounts. Second, I believe that there should be a reduction in the amount of years patents can remain active for. Shortening patent lifespan to 14 to 15 years is relatively balanced, as both allows innovators to profit off of inventions, as well as allowing generic companies to appear in the market a lot earlier, increasing competition. Countries like France and Germany regulate prices while continuing to innovate, demonstrating that regulation and innovation are by no means mutually exclusive. Of course, there are many more reforms that could have a greater effect, but these are two that I believe would be a step in the right direction. All in all, high pharmaceutical drug prices are not a result of chemistry, rather policy. Policy that has the capacity to change and provide a fairer system to patients and creating compromise with corporations, balancing innovation and affordability, reworking a system that decides health based on wealth.